I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we have the beautiful and brilliant Tiffany here. Just wanted to say hi.
Oh my God, you're so nice. You sound very brilliant. I have nothing insightful to add to this, but it's fun hearing you talk.
Thank you. So let's see. I can't say we have a mutual friend because you know somebody that everybody wants to know right now. And I don't know, I don't want to ask you about it if you don't want to talk about it. So,
Oh, you can ask me about it. I am in an Uber, so I'm somewhat limited in what I can talk about, but you can ask me about it if you want.
yeah, so I mean, I was in a similar position to Sam, probably. So, we're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, who's a personal friend of Tiffany's. And, I was in a bit of a similar situation. I know some other people that are in similar situations or have been or soon going to be. Regardless, it's a really, really tough place to sort of exist. Do we have an update on what's going on? Because I do notice that the court said he can't, which I think is wrong, by the way. The court said he can't do this and he can't do that.
Yeah, I actually visited him like a couple of days ago because his bail conditions are changing to where it's going to be really hard for him to have visitors from here on. I don't know if it was difficult for you, but now I think he's going to have to sort of schedule things in advance, hire security to check and make sure no visitors bring in any electronics. He can't play League of Legends anymore, no more games for Sam. Apparently he can't use anything with any sort of chat feature. So he's going to be real lonely from here on out. Did you have all those sorts of restrictions when you were on house arrest?
I didn't, and I, like Sam, I kind of rapidly tried to, make things worse for myself, inadvertently. And I think that, thankfully for me, there was just so much damage I could do to myself. When your lawyers tell you don't talk anymore, or don't do this anymore, etc., you should generally listen to them. But there's a lot of people, whether it's neuroatypical or just sort of built a certain way, that they just can't listen to authority or reason, and they learn the hard way. And I learned the hard way. I had my bail revoked for making a joke about Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately, somebody recently got an actual federal conviction for making a joke about Hillary Clinton. So I was the cautionary tale, don't mess with Hillary, and this guy basically memed about, I think he said that, oh, you shouldn't vote in person, just vote with text message, which is, a pretty dastardly meme, and I can imagine how some people could be confused by that, and maybe some people stayed home because of that, and that's a crime, and this guy should go to jail for that. To me, there's a lot of that syllogism is quite slippery. I think that, certainly not an ethical, smart, nice thing to do, but, all the rest of those chains and that chain of thought, I don't agree with. And unfortunately, this guy is now a federal, felon. He was convicted in the same courthouse I went to. And again, there have been a lot of people who said very nasty things about other politicians, and they've never sort of gone to jail. This is sort of election tampering and election fraud, so I get it, it's important, but I think that what can I say? I don't like law enforcement in general, and I especially don't like it for stuff like this, where there isn't a tangible, palpable victim. Sam's case is interesting. It's very strange. I think that the restrictions on his freedom are ridiculous not because I like him or I think that he's not a criminal or whatever. I reserve judgment on all that stuff. He's presumed innocent until proven guilty, one. And that is something you can never forget. It sure looks like he's guilty of something, but again, he has to have a chance to say his piece. And there's a court of law that is supposed to be the place where he's supposed to do that. And we kind of hurt our own system every time we poke fun of that or we think it's a fait accompli that somebody's guilty. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that I would want, and I sort of didn't have, and he's probably not going to have, and all that. But I think that, the freedom part, until he goes to trial and is convicted, I think he should be free. I understand the flight risk concept. Sam Bankman is not going to be an easy man to hide in any country, and Do Kwon kind of proved that recently. There's never been somebody who's gone on the lam for a long time and was able to actually get away with it. And I had this fantastic attorney, Ben Braffman, who's still a close friend and still my attorney. He's been in the business for 40 years with all kinds of criminals, mob bosses, Puff Daddy, dignitaries, you name it. And when there was a question about my own bail, he said, look, have you ever seen a person successfully flee the country for a long period of time and evade the long arm of the law? And the people on the other side said, yeah, that's true. And then he said, and do you think my client, with his recognizable smirk, can really stay hidden? Yeah, that's right. And so to me, like, Sam Bankman would not be able to flee. He'd not be able to last 3 months anywhere. He's also not a cunning criminal. Like, there are people who are, like, slick, like, you know, people I met in jail who are, like, they're really slippery, dangerous people. Sam's not that. Sam's kind of a bit of a... kind of like an idiot savant, right? Like, he's the kind of guy who will, you know, not know how to tie his shoes, but know how to program, you know, some really complicated, you know, program. And that's why he's Sam. And I think that, you know, he should not be restricted, because the main reason, in my opinion, is if you're restricted in your daily life, right, what happens when you actually have to serve your sentence? To me, that's sort of the real reason here. So he's going to do what, like a year, maybe 2 in this like confined state, but none of that counts for his actual sentence. So if, let's say he gets 10 years, for argument's sake, you know, if he does 2 years sitting at home, well, what does that count for? Half a year of prison? Is that 0 years of prison? Well, it's often it's not 0 because he's not free, but he's also not in jail. So it's kind of like this messed up situation that I think is really kind of disgusting, because I think that time should either count for his jail time or he should just be presumed innocent. And the idea that he's a flight risk is preposterous. The guy, you know, should be able to use a computer like anybody else. If he commits another crime while he's, you know, on bail, they can take his bail away. I mean, there's you know, a lot of ways to go about this. This is just sort of senseless punishment, I think. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I also agree that he's not the slickest, most cunning criminal. And I've talked to him a bunch of times and asked him, like, were you ever interested in fleeing? He said he was never interested in fleeing.
Of course not, yeah.
Yeah, so I really don't think he's a risk for that. He's certainly done some stupid things on house arrest where I'm like, I kind of was just like, how did you think that you could just get away with this without repercussion? But I mean, I absolutely agree with everything that you just said. Also, I'm interested in talking to you more about all of this, because I feel like you have a lot of insight.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, I'd just say real quick that, you know, it's the amount of pressure that and stress that comes at you in this type of situation is pretty significant. And I think that for him, facing what he's facing, it's really significant. So you can't imagine, I can't imagine, and if anybody could imagine, it would be me, but I can't imagine the kind of things he's going through that run through his head every day that make it difficult to sort of think through what the best decision is. I'm not trying to sympathize with him or excuse any of the allegations. What I'm just trying to say is provide some insight into what's going on in his head that may lead to bad decisions between now and his trial. You know, it's just a frustrating experience to go through from the human side. I understand that, you know, there are a lot of victims here that want answers, and maybe we want his head on a platter. And, you know, that is what it is. And I'm not trying, like I said, to be on Sam's side. I'm not. I'm not on any side. But I can understand that, like, he's probably going through a lot mentally, and that's pretty taxing, that, you know, you might see continuous weird behavior. And I think the courts may be doing him a little bit of a favor to keep himself from hurting himself kind of further. You know, he went on, like, an innocence tour. That didn't go very great. He sort of, you know, tried to start Substack and explain his innocence there. That didn't go so great either. And again, I'm not trying to laugh at him. I think that, you know, ultimately, in a court, the court of law is like there to convict you. It's like impossible to be found innocent. And here there's enough smoke that, you know, it seems like the odds that he can wriggle out of this are virtually zero.
He doesn't actually regret doing his little apology tour. He doesn't think it went too poorly. Like, I think he thought that it went well, actually, which I don't know if I agree with, but yeah, I do agree with what you are
Well, yeah, I mean, if you put yourself in his shoes, you got to do something, right? And that's the pressure. Is like, man, I got to do something. I got to do something. And I can understand the weight of that pressure forcing you to then do something. But obviously,
Yeah,
like,
he's basically been saying that he doesn't feel that he's going to get a fair trial or like fair jury based on the current media environment. That's basically what he keeps repeating. So I think that's part of why he wants to sort of change the narrative in the public eye. And it seems like he's still. He has said, like, oh, I kind of wish I could do more PR right now. So, I mean, I think he still would like to get something out there, but he's obviously a lot more restricted now.
yeah, he's also somebody that raised billions of dollars and made a national splash. So I think he probably feels like he could very much, do something similar. And who knows? Maybe so. I think there's a lot of trust lost there that it'd be awfully hard for him to win anybody's hearts over. Once you mess up enough, most people will say, I don't really want to give this person, a second chance. And I think that's, kind of what he tried to do towards the end there was sort of be like, oh, I could fix this. And, I think that, there's, it's not clear that that was even possible. So again, it's a sad thing. I personally don't like to see anybody go to jail for a very long time. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. It's not going to bring the money back that everybody lost. I don't think it's a deterrent because these crimes still happen all the time, even though we give life sentences out like they're glasses of water. So it's not being an effective deterrent. It's doesn't teach the criminal a lesson in terms of like recidivism. That's been shown that the number of years somebody spends in jail has no impact on the likelihood of recidivizing and committing another crime. So, there is that sort of argument that the more you keep somebody in jail, the more you protect them from society, or you protect society from them, I should say. The problem with that is, I think people like Sam or Elizabeth Holmes, like, they're not exactly going to go jump into, a big new company anytime soon. It's hard for them to regain that trust and things like that, especially after sort of the media, sort of labeled them, the way they labeled them. So I feel like, for him to sit in jail for 30 years or 40 years, something or 50 years, or something like that, or longer, who knows, is, that's a really, again, I don't feel bad for him necessarily, but I also feel like I don't think anybody really should go through that unless they were a violent criminal. I don't know how you feel about that, Tiff.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I agree with you, although I'm like always reluctant with how I talk about all of this because I get death threats and I get like a lot of heat over all of it. But I agree with you. I mean, in terms of like wanting to see someone in jail for life, I mean, I kind of only want to see that for violent criminals or like pedophiles or something. But yeah, so I don't know. I am actually curious as to how long you think he's going to spend in jail. I think you had an interview with Laura Shin. Were you guys discussing that?
Yeah, I actually want to put this in GPT and see what it thinks, but I want to see how close it would get if you put all the criminal facts without the names and see if it actually was able to calculate it correctly.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think he gets less. He gets at least 20. I mean,
yeah.
I think it'd be very, yeah.
He seems more optimistic about his odds than I would be. I mean, he still thinks there's like a shot that he gets nothing. So I mean, who knows? But he seems more optimistic than I think the general public and how it looks to me.
Yeah, I mean, he would have more information, obviously, but from looking from the sidelines, I would just say it's extremely hard to get an acquittal. It's almost impossible. And I think that's a problem in the criminal justice system. Probably the government looks at it as a feature, not a bug. But I think that, yeah, once you're indicted, I mean, the odds, just the numbers are all you have to look at are the 90+% chance that you're going to prison. So, that's a very, very tough thing. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. People do get acquitted. But it looks really, really tricky. And he keeps getting new charges like every day. So it's
Yeah, I mean, he kept getting new charges, and that's something he was surprised by. I think that, like last time I spoke with him, he said that he was under the impression that if he agreed to extradition from the Bahamas, that that new charges couldn't be added. I don't know if you're aware of that being an actual thing, but he said he was under that impression. So, he was
Well,
surprised by.
yeah, I mean, I happen to think prosecutors are the scum of the earth, and they lie and cheat and commit crimes themselves, all the time. So, I think that, I wouldn't be surprised that they made him a promise that they didn't, keep. That's fairly typical type of behavior for government prosecutors. And the people involved in this case, what's amazing is how quickly they moved, right? From the date of the crime to the date of the arrest is typically several years because you have 5 years to actually make the arrest. You have a statute of limitations. And you can collect evidence, and you're supposed to do that. And they just grabbed them and said, okay, well, we have enough, and let's do this. And, I think that maybe that's a new way of doing law, but I can tell you that in most other circumstances, they don't move that quickly, and I think they moved quickly here. I'm going to be very cynical for a second. The Southern District of New York wanted to have this case under their flag, because if California had this case under their flag, or the Eastern District in New York had this case under their flag, they would sort of look at the world a little bit differently as, oh, this is our guy, and anybody can bring the indictment. So it's kind of like a market share, mind share kind of thing, which is sort of sick and sad, because it's a real person that deserves some benefit of the doubt. They deserve their day in court like everybody else. And who knows if he's got the smoking gun where he says, ha ha, here it is. None of you ever knew about this letter where I wrote, to my coworkers that, everything we're doing here is legal and I have a legal opinion and blah, blah, blah. And here's the smoking gun. Who knows if he has that? Who knows if he doesn't? Again, it looks, from an uneducated perspective, it looks pretty bleak, but he has a chance to win, and the more charges that get added, sometimes that actually makes the case worse. All you need is really one charge to send somebody to jail. So for the government to add charge after charge after charge after charge kind of convolutes the case and maybe makes the jury wonder, like, what is this all about? Like, this is a little odd. There's bribery in here. There's all this other stuff. Like, this is like a movie. Am I watching a movie, or am I trying to figure out if this guy committed a crime? And I think it'll work for them as a strategy in the end. But I know in my case, when they added one extra charge to my case halfway through, we viewed it as a positive for us that, like, they were kind of like grasping at straws. It's clear that they're not grasping at straws here, that this looked like this extra charge here was pretty real, pretty scary. But sometimes if you can prove one of the charges is bullshit, the jury gets very skeptical. The jury says, wait a second. If charge 7 is bullshit, or charge 14, maybe all the other stuff here is bullshit. And I lose faith in the prosecutor. I lose faith in the FBI. I can't believe anything they're saying. So that's a good strategy for a defense attorney. Generally, these additional charges don't work out well. And if you can pick just one of them apart and really fixate on that, you can sometimes get an acquittal by, like, showing the jury that the whole case is bullshit kind of attempt. But anyway, I wish him well from like an interpersonal perspective. I think 20 is the bare minimum in this situation. And again, I don't think it's if he's found guilty, I think it's a terrible thing that he did. But I also think that, like, you're his friend, and he's allowed to have friends, and your friends are allowed to make mistakes in life, right? Like, it's not like it's illegal to make a mistake. It's not like it's illegal to be his friend or wrong. Like, everybody deserves a friendship, love, things like that. And, if he makes this mistake, and he's made a terrible mistake, he should have the opportunity to redeem himself at least the best he can and apologize for it. And, it's not going to make the money back, but he deserves a chance to be human at least.